The village of Nkoranza was peaceful, a place where time seemed to slow down. The air was always thick with the scent of damp earth and the quiet hum of life in the countryside. For Kofi, his wife Akojua, and their 2 children, Oma and Kwame, it was the perfect place to settle down and escape the chaos of the city. They had longed for a simple life, away from the noise and pollution of Accra. One evening, after months of searching, they found an old house that seemed to promise a fresh start. It was a large, old building, its walls weathered by time and nature. The gate creaked as they pushed it open, and the house seemed to breathe with them, its silent presence watching them as they explored. It had been abandoned for many years, and though it looked worn and tired, there was something about it that seemed inviting. Kofi, optimistic about their new life, declared, "This will be our home, Akojua. This place has character, history. It's perfect for us." Akojua, a little uneasy but not wanting to ruin the moment, smiled. "Yes, it is beautiful in its own way." Their children, Oma and Kwame, ran around the yard, laughing and shouting as they explored the garden. The house felt empty but full of potential, a place they could make their own. That night, after dinner, they settled into their rooms for the first time. The house creaked in the stillness, but they thought nothing of it, just the sounds of an old house settling. But as the night deepened, strange things began to happen. Oma, who was just 6 years old, was the first to notice something was wrong. She woke up in the middle of the night, feeling an unusual chill in the air. At first, she thought it was just the cold wind from the window, but then she heard it, a whisper. Soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. Oma pulled the blanket tightly around her and tried to ignore the sound, but it persisted. She finally dared to look toward the window. There, in the darkness, she saw something, shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. She blinked, and they were gone. Frightened, Oma called out to her mother, but Akojua was asleep, her breath steady and undisturbed. Oma pulled the blanket over her head and tried to forget what she had seen, but sleep did not come easily that night. The next morning, the family went about their usual routine, unpacking boxes and cleaning the house. But Oma was distant, her eyes wide with fear. She didn't want to be alone, and whenever someone asked her what was wrong, she only muttered about the shadows. That night, the whispers returned. Only now, they were louder. They seemed to come from the walls, as though the house itself was speaking in a language unknown to them. Akojua was the next to feel the unease, her skin prickling as she moved through the rooms. It was as if something was watching her, lurking in every corner. The following evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, a loud bang echoed through the house. The door to the kitchen slammed shut with such force that it rattled the walls. Kwame, curious but frightened, went to open the door. But as his hand touched the doorknob, he felt something cold, a chill that seemed to crawl up his spine. "Kwame, come back!" Akojua shouted, but he was frozen, staring at the door. Then, as if an invisible hand had pushed him, he was knocked back, falling to the floor. The family rushed to his side, but he was too frightened to speak. His eyes were wide with terror. I felt something. It touched me," he whispered, his voice trembling. Later that night, as Kofi tried to comfort his children, Akojua began to hear it too, the faint whispers that seemed to come from the very walls. Leave this place," they seemed to say. The words were soft at first, but they grew louder, more insistent. And then, the shadow appeared. It was not like the shadows Oma had seen. This shadow moved on its own, shifting and flickering, as though it was alive. It stood at the end of the hallway, a dark figure that seemed to watch them with cold, empty eyes. Kofi, thinking it was just a trick of the light, grabbed the flashlight and approached it. But as he neared, the shadow moved, vanishing into the walls. "Did you see that?" Akojua gasped, her voice shaking. Kofi nodded, his heart pounding. "We need to get out of here." But when they tried to leave the house, they found the doors locked, impossible to open. The windows wouldn't budge either, as if the house had sealed them in. Panic set in as the whispers grew louder, and the walls began to shake. The spirits were angry. That night, as they huddled together in the living room, an old woman from the village appeared at the door. She had heard rumors about the house and had come to warn them. "You are living in a house cursed by a powerful witch doctor," the woman said, her voice trembling with fear. Long ago, Nanaya was a witch doctor who used the house as her temple, but she grew too powerful, too greedy. She summoned spirits to gain more power, but the spirits turned against her. In her desperation, she cursed the house. Now, anyone who lives there will suffer. The house belongs to the spirits, and they will never let you go. Akojua's face turned pale. "We have to leave, Kofi. Please. This is too much." But Kofi, though frightened, stood firm. "We cannot run away. We've just moved here. We have to fight, for our family." That night, Kofi searched the house for answers. In the attic, hidden beneath old blankets and forgotten treasures, he found a journal. The journal belonged to Nanaya. It was filled with accounts of dark rituals and the summoning of spirits. The final pages spoke of a curse placed on the house, one that could only be lifted by offering a life of pure love and sacrifice. Kofi, shaking with fear but determined, knew what he had to do. He called the family together and explained what he had found. "We have to break the curse," he said, his voice steady despite the terror in his heart. "The only way is to offer something that will appease the spirits." The family gathered in the living room, holding hands as they prepared for the ritual. Akojua was hesitant, but she knew there was no other way. They placed the old, carved knife from the chest in the center of the room, the symbols glowing faintly in the candlelight. Suddenly, the house shook again, and the dark figure of Nanaya appeared before them. Her eyes burned with anger, her face twisted in fury. "You think you can break my curse?" she hissed. "This house is mine, and so are you." The family was surrounded by the spirits, shadowy figures that seemed to write and shift in the air. But as Kofi raised the knife, something changed. The spirits paused, and Nanaya's face twisted in fear. "You have no power over me," she growled, but her voice trembled. "I offer my life," Kofi said, his voice calm and resolute. "But spare my family." The air grew thick with tension. The spirits whispered in a language Kofi couldn't understand, and Nanaya's form flickered. She stared at Kofi for a long moment, then slowly, reluctantly, nodded. "Your sacrifice will not save you," she muttered, fading into the shadows. The house grew still. The whisper ceased. The shadows vanished. But Kofi and Akojua were no longer the same. They were weak, their strength drained by the curse. As the first light of dawn broke through the windows, they realized they had broken the curse, but at a cost. The house was free, but they were not the same people who had walked in. They left Nkoranze soon after, never to return. The house stood silent and empty, its dark secrets buried deep within the walls. But the villagers knew better than to go near it. The curse was broken, but the spirits lingered, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to enter.